Hi everyone, welcome to Clade's session on the art of data storytelling. Hope you guys aren't all zoomed out with today's conference at the moment. We promise today's session will be as engaging and as fun as possible. Our goal is to make this light, but actually giving you guys some insightful information into what is usually seen as a boring topic with data. We're going to make it as fun as possible. Before we kick off, Mark, you want to change the slide? I just want to do a little bit of acknowledgement. We begin today by acknowledging the Dubali people, traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay our respects to the elders past and present. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Next slide, Mark. And today, guys, you got two fun presenters. I'm hoping that we're fun. My name's Ty. I'm the head of growth over at Clade. And I've got Mark Montfort today, who's the founder and CEO of New Era Analytics. Mark, do you want to say anything about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I work with Clade a lot. We've got a strong partnership and we do a lot of the data analytics and data storytelling, which we'll show you some of today.
Beautiful. And if you guys don't know who Clade are, we are very proud sponsors of ACFID. We are not just sponsors, but we're actually in the middle of a digital transformation project with ACFID, and I'll go through that partnership in a little bit. But we wanted to, I guess, as sponsors, I have to go through a little bit of our story and introduce ourselves and who we are, because we want to spend a lot of time with ACFID over the next 12 months, getting to know you guys a little bit more. So we are Microsoft Gold partners. So that means that we specialize across the Microsoft stack of technologies. And in terms of us and where we're located, guys, we have a national coverage across Australia with we've actually 57 staff members now in New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and the Northern Territory. In terms of our capability, and a massive reason why we sponsored ACFID is we understand the non-for-profit sector, it sort of lacks a bit of digital transformation experts there, and we specialize in the Microsoft stack, and I'll talk through that a little bit. We've also developed two products, and one of them is CAMS, which is our association management solution, and that's actually a product that we're implementing with ACFID at the moment, as well as we have a product called Scrim, which is a work health and safety product. In terms of the key customers, I mean, over the last decade, we have specialized across the non-for-profit sector. Hence why we have such an alignment with ACFID, and we're looking to make a big impact with our sponsorship and actually giving you guys as much information as possible. Our goal isn't to sell using this platform, but our goal is really to engage you guys. Next slide, mate. As I mentioned earlier, we do have over a decade of non-for-profit experience, and we want to bring that experience to the membership base at ACFID, and that's yourselves. And I'm hoping everyone that's tuning in at the moment is looking for some technical advice, and we're hoping that we can provide that to you guys, not just within this session, but over the next 12 months with our engagement here. Beautiful. And the reason why we've actually specialized with Microsoft as well, I wanted to share this slide just because of hearing all the amazing speakers today. It really does align with the vision of Microsoft, and one of their vision is tech for social impact. And they created a model. And if you guys don't know, I thought we'll do a bit of education piece with the Microsoft model there. They've actually built a whole stack of technologies that's just purely for the non-for-profit sector, using what they call the non-for-profit cloud. The technology itself is number one. The left circle there is affordable technology. They have prices for enterprise businesses as well as non-for-profit licensing. And I'm pretty sure if you guys are already on Microsoft, you guys will be leveraging those discounts there. In terms of capacity for building, they do actually have they actually have a few programs that's bring young developers into the country, as well as upskilling the developers within the country now to provide a capacity of building technology for us. And then where we sit in is in that partner ecosystem. Microsoft actually do provide quite a bit of money, quite a bit of funding to the partners out there to help non-for-profits. They actually fund quite a bit of projects for us as well to help non-for-profit organizations out there. And then finally, what few people don't know is that social investment model. All profits that they make with social within the not-for-profit sector actually goes back into the sector itself. So they do donate quite a small percentage there into that sector. Awesome. So why did we engage the corporate partnership with ACFID? And it says it on the screen there. We wanted to come in to educate you guys. We actually also want to learn more about this industry. I think this is an amazing industry to be part of, and everyone that's in this industry at the moment, you guys do all amazing things, and we want to learn more about that so we can sort of create our content to help you guys with your journey a little bit more. We want to engage. So beyond doing these speaking sessions, but we want to actually meet you guys, and hopefully we get back to face-to-face events very soon. We're going to get to meet you guys at events and share our experiences. And then lastly, we want to contribute. We actually do quite a few newsletters, and we do quite a few lunches and quite a few virtual networking sessions to build content to educate you guys a little bit more. So one of those sessions is this one here. So the art of data storytelling. We've worked with so many not-for-profits previously where data collecting, it's just a second thought. And you know what, it's not even just not-for-profits, it's actually the Australian economy altogether. And they're just we just haven't been great with data ever. And today we've actually brought in an expert like Mark Montfort, who's been doing data his whole life. And he's going to share a lot of his experiences in how to actually make those Excel sheets into something pretty, so you guys can actually get useful information out of this, and how important it is for you guys to, one, collect data properly, and then two, actually tell a story behind it and what you guys can achieve from that. So Mark, over to you, mate.
Okay, so thanks for that little intro. Before jumping into it, and I've seen many kind of a presentation when it comes to data, someone presenting like a new product or some sort of new data service, and they either will do like a really long, bit of detail about why they've got this thing, or they just jump straight into the data solution that they've got. I reckon that we need to set the scene just a little bit. So taking a little bit of a step back, the reason why we're here is because we believe that you can use data to your advantage, no matter the size of your organization. One of the key things that we find is that data is able to help you drive actions through storytelling. And we call it data storytelling for a very good reason. It's because pictures are worth 1,000 words. And when you do the right things with data and enhance it, come up with nice data stories that flow and are interactive, you are really turning what normally would be a very kind of bland report into something quite powerful, and where your audience is looking to interact more. So definitely that picture is worth 1,000 words saying, it really fits here as well, especially for the not-for-profit sector. And one of the other keys that we find in every industry that we've worked in is that speed of decision making. Now, you could get a large data set from various sources, whether it's the ABS with statistics, it's internal data that you've got as well. But unless you've got a process and tools by which to really speed up that decision making, it is going to leave you behind. And we find that in the for-profit sector just as much as we do in the not-for-profit sector. So we see that using the right kind of tools, using it with the right kind of data, you can speed up that decision making. Now, why should you embrace data? We see that there's many benefits from becoming data-driven. And some organizations that we work with, and this is across the board, it's not just not-for-profit, it's for profit as well. Many organizations have people that use Excel, and that's great. And it's really kind of useful, but the problem there is that it's not very scalable. It leads to a whole lot of problems if you're not using sophisticated tools like the type of which we'll talk about shortly. But some of the benefits of becoming data-driven include, for this particular sector, improving policy conversations. And by having data to back up your imperative, your reach, the things that you are trying to change across society, by having data to back that up, it becomes a much more powerful message than if it were to be just subjective. And the more data, the better, the more that you can get out of the data that you've got, even better then. So compelling marketing and storytelling is what we're all about. We've seen it work across many different industries, as I keep saying, but having that compelling data that sits within infographics or interactive charts, it just makes for much more stronger marketing and can hopefully drive the impact home a lot more. And it also provides you with the skills to have a better ability to understand not just the data that you've got internally, but more about your clients. And hopefully you can find better ways to service them through that. And then it's also quicker to pick up on the trends that might be going on at a macro or a micro level within your industry. So by understanding your customers better, by understanding the data that's generated from them, and also being able to understand the industries that you work in as a whole, by having these better data technology type tools, it's going to make decision-making a whole lot better for you and your organization. So that was it, setting the scene. Let's jump to a couple of data story examples. We've got a few here, and we are going to go through them in kind of the level of sophistication that you could expect from whenever the word data is uttered when it comes to talking about data stories. The first one is infographics, and infographics are very interesting. They can showcase really compelling insights, but the problem with them is that they're static typically. And the next level up might be PDF reports, which is much more than just a single image of an infographic. You can have multiple pages there, a lot of narrative, a lot of charts there, and that can be more of a compelling kind of story. You can even have tables with that. I mean, I've worked in finance most of my life, and I've recently done a lot of stuff in the ESG and impact space. So I see it in both, but there's some very short, but also some very long reports which just have a lot of tables and numbers, and that's great. It shows a lot more information, but again, it's not interactive. So that is something to keep an eye out for. And then the next level is actually making it interactive and putting some sort of chart on a company website. That chart might be just something very simple, something basic, but maybe even with some limited interactivity. And the next level is actually what we're going to show you, which is some real life examples with some artificial volunteer data. We can't show you the real volunteer data of the kind of companies that we've been working with, but we've made some artificial ones so that we can at least show you what is possible with data. So the first one for infographics, we can see here on the right, this was something that I clipped from a story in the news, and it's kind of like that infographic. So it doesn't have, infographics don't just have to be animation or cartoon type graphics. They can also be images and words and a bit of numbers on the page. So this is typically something that we do see trying to promote a message there. And there's a couple of things here that we found in terms of research, right? So from the Journal of Accounting, Auditing and Finance, this one was on NGOs. It found that nonprofits open with their data received 50% more donations. So when there's data in terms of what it is that they provide, there's much more chance for better donations. There's also a direct link between actively sharing information and seeing greater fundraising results. So that's quite interesting. The difference there is having that data aspect to what's being done. Our view here, working with Clade, is that many companies all over, even not-for-profits, stick with PDF reports, but we see clients, their clients as well, wanting more and more to explore the data. Okay, then this is one where it's actually a bit of an example. So working in finance, this is definitely not a not-for-profit kind of area, but there's a lot of data and numbers, and you might see tables like this coming from Excel with a lot of information. It might be from providers that you need the data for. It might even be from the databases that you have yourself or the information you collect. At a glance, it's very hard to tell what's going on here. Even if you sorted this information, there's not that much that you can really glean from it. If it was just a single month's data, for example, which is what we're seeing here, we wouldn't be able to really know anything. But by joining the data together and using data technology tools, we can turn that data into a picture like we see on the page here, where we can see trends. We can tell the difference between areas that are bigger or smaller than others. And we can't do that from just simply having the tables of information. So we believe that data technology really helps there. And then even better is to make that data more interactive. And so this is an example that I found online. This is something that someone has done with UNICEF. So it's not necessarily an official UNICEF dashboard, although they probably have those. But a lot of people in the data space, whether through crowdsourcing or hackathon, they call these competitions where they will be provided with data, given some sort of, it's either a prize or it's some sort of just like a data challenge. Someone has come up with this example for UNICEF. So this was designed not necessarily like a normal kind of report that you might have seen with a lot of charts and numbers, but it's actually been made to look like a website. It's got a lot of images behind that, and it is interactive as well. So it actually has a call to action as well. So it's not just a report that just sits there statically and you can look up the numbers, but it is there to drive actions. So I'm going to show a video now, no sound, but I will talk you through it. So as this plays, what's basically happening here is that someone, and the software he uses is Click, which is one of the different providers there. And they've got an interactive chart, which you can click on the page. You can do some searches. They've got a map there that they've created and put some dots on that to represent different regions. And you can see how, as the user clicks on all of those dots, it changes. There's a couple of drop downs that come from the top. And the user in this situation can select from different kind of areas of in this case, it was cities. They can select different employee types. You can even have it scrolling so there's more information on a page. So they're showing here current and target sales. And then they can select different countries. And as those are selected, it changes the rest of the selection, seeing who is above and below their goals, even with some handy hints there on top of what's showing on the page. There's also different ways to show the filters. Okay, so it can be this drop down as well to select the different periods. And there's much more that can be seen in something like this. Now, this is a YouTube video. So if you look up UNICEF ClickSense dashboard, that is that example that's there. It does take time. So having worked with software like this, it does take quite a lot of time to pull something like this together, but it certainly is possible. The next example is something closer to home. And so the ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, there's an interactive data set on their website. So this is another way that you can deliver data. It doesn't have to be through a whole lot of information on the page. It can even be through something as simple as having the numbers animate when people scroll at the data on the page. So we're looking at Australian migrant data here, and it can be as simple as this. Even something just like this can be more compelling than if you were not, to have any kind of numbers or data on the page. So the next one that we'll go through is actually an interactive example. And I'm not sure if the slides will be provided, but if they are, we've actually got this Power BI example. And I'll talk a little bit more about Microsoft. So if you click the link here, it's going to take you to this example where some of the pages are interactive, and I'll show you which ones they are. Now, the reason for using Microsoft is not just because of the strong association there that Ty had mentioned, but I find that for this particular sector and many others, it's probably the best tool to get started. And we say get started because we know that many are just using Excel and simple reporting tools. But if you were interested in really getting to that next level, you've got to take that first step. And Power BI is really a cheap and effective way to do so. And because it's from Microsoft, it's almost like just the next level up from Excel. So if you're already doing stuff with Excel, it is pretty easy to learn how to use Power BI. And we'll go through some links later on in this presentation. But for now, we'll go to the demo. Okay, so this is just loading on the page here. The design of what's on the page here, there's not much design to it. So you saw all those fancier designs. You can even have something as simple as this. You can design some buttons to go on the page here. Now, just for those at home, the management, operations, and finance buttons do not work. I can click on these, they're not working. We've only got the volunteers as an example here, but you might have other areas that you want to see. This is just something, this is one type of way that you can present it. The design, a little, side note, the design of this is actually from PowerPoint. You can design in Adobe, you can design the background in anything else. I find that PowerPoint is quite useful to create these blocks and charts and bring in images. And then what happens is that Power BI's visuals are put over the top of that within Power BI. It's published to the web, and this is what you see right now. So it's a very easy, this only took me like half an hour to put together this data. So what we've got here in this example is having filters on the side so we can select different volunteer programs, and it's interactive. So as I change the filters, we can see information on the page change. We can select different geographies as well. So we've sliced the data in terms of north and south. And then the other part is that filters don't just have to be these drop downs and just fields in a list. It doesn't have to be, it can even be what's on the page as well, in terms of, this is a word cloud. So the word cloud is done in terms of the volunteers with the most hours. So I can see Stella here and Ariana here as well. Alexia is also up there in terms of this artificial volunteer data set. But you can also do something on the page. So if I click on a user here, I can see how the rest of the charts interactively change based on the selections that I make. You can also go full screen with the charts here. So you might have something where you've got a lot of information on the page, but you're particularly interested, whether it's for a presentation or for something else, you want to look at a particular chart, you can actually maximize that. Then the other part is that you can have these things called hoverovers. And the hoverover is something where you can design another tile so that when you move to different bits of information on a page, you can see how that information relates. So in this case, we've called it a volunteer stats box. That design that you're looking at there, it doesn't have to look like that. It can look like anything else. You could have a bar graph, a chart, a pie chart, whatever it is, or even a table of information showing there. But this one's nice and quite large in terms of the visual nature of it. So we can see the number of occupations in that particular area, as well as planned hours versus the actual number of hours. And as we look at different states, we can see different information coming up there. And then, yeah, like I said, you can click and change what else is on a page. You can even highlight multiple areas at a time, and you can see how that looks. And so that's one of the live examples. There is another one here. And as I said, a lot of people will work on these competitions where data is provided to the public to see what people can create from it. And Microsoft has a really great community of people that are doing that in the Power BI space. And this is something where the UN provided volunteer data. And let's just maximize this. And we'll provide these links in the show notes, of course. But someone has pieced together all of this UN volunteer information. And as we showed there before, as you click on the charts and the different filters, you can see different information popping up. There is a time element as well to this one here. So we didn't have that in our data set there, but you can change the period of time that's being looked at, and you can see how that changes information on the page. There's also multiple pages of insights here as well, and different types of charts and graphs. So that's also something worth having a look at too. So I'll go back now to the presentation. Okay, so just in case of technical difficulties, this PowerPoint presentation also has some animations there of what it was that I just went through. But luckily we had the technology gods working for us, so we were okay. So how to get started? That's always the question. It's great, you've got that there, but how are we going to get started? How do we even, where do we go? Where do we look? And on that, we've got 4 points here that I want to get across. And the first one, and probably the most important, is that getting started is not hard. Sure, it will take you some steps to get to the level of what you have seen in some really good examples like I showed in the videos, or some, okay examples like what I showed you that we created here just quickly for this. But all of those steps you can get to because the information is provided. I've seen many people, and I've even helped people, we have helped people just get started from scratch. You can download Power BI for free, right? And you can actually look at different data sets and try it out. The problem though, is that you will often need guidance, and that's where Clade can really help out. So if you're very attuned to data, you can even, start looking at this kind of stuff with the links that we've got today, but we are here to help guide you. So if you need a lot of help or even just a little, we can be there. But I just want to dispel the myth that getting started is hard. It really is not. So even just doing something better with Excel is a way that we can help you. And many even do that. They just want to improve what they've already got existing in Excel. And if you want to take a step up from that, as we said, there's many easy to use tools like Power BI. There's also Click and a few other tools out there. There's Tableau as well, which has been a little bit harder to get started, but they've got improved tools, but there's many. So depending on your context, because we are experts in data. We know that certain different contexts will have a different need for the data tool that's there. It's not a one size fits all, but luckily we have experience in a lot of that. So we just want to make sure that, yeah, you're aware of that. There's many of those tools out there. There's lots of online resources to help you get started, but needing to figure out where to start is key. Training is something that we can definitely help out with. And instead of guessing, I think it's important to utilize a good data strategy. We do these things that we call data audits, and it's not a bad kind of audit. It's actually a good thing. You get a reward at the end. The reward is that when we've done these data audits, we've provided our clients a roadmap and a strategy for how to get started working with data. So that's something we can help with. Okay, and back to Ty, if you want to talk about, actually, I'll talk about the Microsoft Power BI. Ty comes in a little bit later. So just on Power BI, what's really interesting here is that it's very easy to connect different sources of data together. The examples that I showed you there, and I've done many other ones where some of the data is in Excel, some of it is in the cloud, some of it comes from websites, but Power BI can bring all of that information together quite easily. It's also able to take you along the journey if you need to do more advanced analytics. You don't need to do data science stuff straight away, but it's important to know that if you ever needed to get to that stage where machine learning and AI come into existence within what you need from data, that it's certainly possible with tools like this. It's powerful and performant. It just basically means that you can rely on Microsoft to handle large scaling data or many, many customers using this. And it also brings together, very important in this day and age, data governance and security. So the Australian Cybersecurity Centre put out a report earlier in September showing some very scary statistics about the number of Australians and businesses that get affected by cybersecurity attacks. That's why it's important to work with tools like Microsoft provide, because it does provide a lot of that security. How we help you get started. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was actually jumping back to that previous slide that you're talking about, and I'm keen to. I think we're speeding through things quite quickly, but there are other tools outside of Power BI, and I have people probably listening at the moment that are using different kinds of tools out there. What other tools have you used, Mark?
There's other tools like Click, and Click, before many years ago, 10 years ago, when I first started using it, they had a product called Click View. And Click View was a very cool kind of tool. But then as the internet evolved, and I don't know if you guys might remember this, but you didn't have mobile friendly or web friendly kind of sites that would automatically scale what's on the screen to the user. So you had to always resize, and Click was great at many other things, but just not that. And then that eventually evolved into something that was much more web friendly. And it also meant mobile friendly as well. And so where we are right now with Power BI is something that you can use on your mobile in your organization, but you can also use on the web. You don't need Power BI installed. It can just be via a browser, and it doesn't matter whether it's Apple or it's non-Apple devices or laptops that you're using. It will work on both. But if you are going to design something, downloading Power BI to build and do the design, you do need a Windows type laptop for that to work, but there are other ways around it as well. And we can certainly help out with that. And then a third tool would be Tableau. Tableau is always mentioned because it's got very, very pretty designs. But as I mentioned, it has been harder before to actually get to the level of where your data is in a nice, neat format to be able to do some work and design. But now they've got some better tools out there that makes it easy for people to, they call it data wrangling. So to move all your data and position it in the right way to get rid of the blank rows and spaces and clean it up, basically. So Tableau's also got that. So we're actually very lucky. If people are just getting started with data today, it's certainly a lot easier than when I got started over a decade ago.
Yeah. And what do you see? I know these tools are always evolving at the moment. Do you see another trend coming through with Power BI, Tableau, or Click at the moment?
What I see is a big trend kind of happening. There's a couple of sub trends, but the biggest trend that I see kind of overarching all of this is that it is becoming easier and easier to make the jobs of people like myself redundant. The reason I say that is because the tools that are out there now, well, not necessarily now, there's still a lot of work that needs to be there. But if someone is a consultant that was just there to build you a dashboard, there's less need for that, given that a lot of the tools are actually very good at providing that easy to use capability. But the problem is that to get your data in a state where it's easy to do that, you still need help with that. But what I see happening is that more and more of this evolution of making it easier for the end user. And what it means is that as these tools become much more advanced, the people that work to provide you that help, they have to level up, right? And provide you, they have to be that port of call for something much more advanced. It's not just there to go, how do I connect my data? Well, in the future, people will be able to just do that themselves, and they will call on people like us to do the statistical modeling or the advanced analytics. And that's where the industry is heading. There's a couple of sub kind of features to that, such as, we didn't show it to you here, but one of the things that Power BI is getting better and better at, and many of the other tools are doing this, is something called natural language processing. And what that means is that having a machine, an algorithm behind that machine, reading text and deciphering information from that text, and being able to decipher whether this is positive or negative for sentiment analysis, or being able to pick out certain features from a piece of text. And the other part of that natural language is turning numbers into stories. So you might get something where a machine will read ABS and other statistics, say to do with volunteers. And instead of having an analyst writing the story there, you actually have something where the machine can write the story. And sure, it's not necessarily like all human written, but it can sound very much like it has been authored. And even if someone needs to go in and write over that a little bit, at least that process of creating the charts, creating the first bit of narrative and pulling all the numbers together, a lot of that process can be automated. So if you add it up, if you're saving, a couple of hours a day or even minutes, that all of that stuff really adds up and makes it possible to have much more time to focus on the impact side of things, working with clients and doing much more analysis rather than trying to piece things together. Efficiency is what we will be able to provide.
Man, I love that. I think you've gone too far in the future there. For the ones that are listening, they've gone through the journey, and they're actually quite mature with data. They have Power BI tablet or Click at the moment. They're doing data visualization. They're doing great interactive dashboards. How do they know, or when would they know that they're ready for the next stage that you're talking about earlier, the machine learning, the AI?
Yeah.
How would you know when you know your business is ready for that?
Well, I liken it to it kind of sounds funny, but you'll know when you know. And the reason I say that, because I've been in, big companies, small companies, I've got my own, startup and stuff now. But when I have helped other organizations, what they've been able to find in every single place that we've done this kind of work in with technology and bringing in good data, they are doing things at a certain level today. And with better technology and data, they're able to make that more efficient. And now to do what they were doing before, they basically don't need to spend as much time. If it took them 5 hours to do a report, now it's only half an hour, or it's even automated. What they end up doing with the rest of that time is now adding more features and more capabilities to what those reports were saying, or what those data insights were providing to their customers. And as you go through that cycle, at some point in time, given the software that you've got today or the software that you've got tomorrow, you will hit a limit where it's all of a sudden you just get that feeling that it's taking too long to do certain things. When things like that happen, it's either you need to change your hardware or your software, or you need to bring in consultants to help you unleash something even different, because maybe you're using some older tools and now you need something like a Power BI. You will know those limits when it becomes frustrating, basically. So it's kind of subjective, but I guess I haven't yet found a person that we've worked with that was not wanting to improve, the time it takes to put reports together. So I think, yeah, there definitely is a way to measure that a little bit.
No, beautiful, mate. That's all the questions I've got for you now for now.
Okay. All right. So how we help you get started. Ty, do you want to talk about the starter packs?
Yeah, definitely, mate. And I think you touched on a good note there. And everyone that's listening at the moment, it isn't hard to get started at all. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Mark. I think technology, especially around the Microsoft stack of technologies, where they're actually really promoting something called the citizen developer, which is putting Mark out of business and also Clade out of business as well. We're actually becoming more of an IT consultancy than an IT development warehouse. And I guess we've actually designed 3 different types of packs that we want to put forward for ACFID members. And as we've also been sponsors and partners with ACFID, we're offering 15% discount on all of these packs and all these services that we provide. And we actually have 3 packs that we sat down together and said, for 3 types of audiences. So number 1 is for the organizations that haven't really gotten started yet, or you're not too sure if you started yet, or if you have a lot of data and you don't have a strategy at the moment. We do have a pack there where it's a data analytics and consultancy pack, where we do come into your business, we get to know who you are, we get to know your data, we get to know what the data is made up of. We're not going to build anything just yet, but actually provide that strategy. And I know we're looking at really nice dashboards, and you saw all the ones from UNICEF and from the UN, and you'll see some great dashboards out there from large organizations, but I promise you, they all started with a strategy. Businesses that don't strategize, they are planning to fail. That cheesy quote, but this is where it all starts. And if you guys don't have a plan just yet for your data, I strongly, highly recommend. Either if you don't reach out to us, find yourself a consultancy, find yourself a third-party partner, find yourself a specialist in that area to sit down and sort of get a different view on what your data looks like and what that could mean for yourself. And secondly, the second pack that we put together is the Power BI starter pack. So if you're already doing data and you're utilizing Excel or other manual processes, I think you guys should start exploring data visualization. And if it's not Power BI, if you're not on the Microsoft stack technologies, there are great tools out there. That's why I got Mark to mention them, either Click or Tableau out there as well. But I think data visualization is when you move on to the next level there. That's actually really the beginning of the data storytelling. You can have all the data in the world, and if there's no Excel sheets, I promise you, most people are not going to read it at all. Having those data visualizations is really going to sell and help you guys get a bit better with getting stakeholders on board on key decision making. And then finally, if you're one of those more mature organizations, we've also put together a pack there to optimize your Power BI. As I was grilling Mark on, you might have data visualization, but then there are different levels to data as well. You start moving to the AI, you start moving to the analytics, you start looking to the forecasting. That is a really big game changer for your business. And especially for not-for-profits and NGOs, we understand like your money needs to be as optimal as possible as you guys look after your stakeholders, your members, or anyone that's in interaction with your organization out there. So I do, if you guys want to have a chat and sort of understand what these packs involve a little bit more, happy to take, I think our details are on the last slide, happy to take a phone call, take an email, and spare some time to just talk to you guys through that.
Perfect. Okay, so as Ty mentioned there's all those different ways to get started, but we also thought that it would be good to provide you with some links as well as to how to get started, or at least even if you just wanted to look at these and glance at what features are available. The first is the different data analytics tools. There's 2 ways that people work with data. There's the off-the-shelf variety, where there's the paid-for tools that have a lot of features. They're easier to use and get started. But there's also open source. And open source, there are data science, typically called data science tools, and you need to learn how to use them. But there's plenty of videos online, but the learning curve is higher. However, typically they are free to get started. There's less licensing costs, or even no licensing costs, depending on what it is that you're doing there. So for the off the shelf, it's the ones that we mentioned through the talk. It's the Power BI, it's the Tableau, it's the Click. Open source, there's data science languages. One is called Python and the other one is called R. And they are quite old, actually, these data science languages. There's going back to the 80s, they even have very simple kind of visualizations that have evolved over time. But as I mentioned, you need to learn how to code, but there are different ways to handle data. A lot of people that say doing a master's or they're studying data science or analytics at uni will probably learn a little bit of both. So you might even have some people in-house. And if you do have those budding data scientists there, we have even been helping those. Ty and I are working with an organization right now that already has some Python work that they're doing, and they're already doing some data work, but they were hitting a kind of a wall because they're not in the world of data. They use data as part of their work to deliver something else, but we work in data all the time. So we were able to go in and do one of those data strategy kind of audits, able to identify ways that we could help and optimize processes to make it even faster for them. So that's something to think about. And along with those links to download or to look at those tools, there are videos where you can watch some of these examples. There are plenty. It's not just these. There's so many that are online, but these are definitely just some examples so you can see what's in store if you wanted to visually or watch a video there. And then finally, how to get in touch. So you can reach out to Ty or myself. You can also find out some more information on the Clade website as well. But we're certainly interested in hearing from you, Ty.
Yeah, definitely. Just as Mark said, Mark, honestly, thank you so much for your time today, man. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise into this data world. And I actually forgot we're part of the Data Science and AI Association of Australia at the moment. Yeah. But to leave the audience for today, but what would actually got a question come through. What is your advice or top tip for an organization with limited resources and just getting started on their data journey?
Yeah, well, it depends in that state. Like, even though that's some good information there. Smaller organization, just getting started. Those are two good tidbits. But it's also important to understand what kind of data that you're working with, because data, whether big organization or small, if we get a look at what kind of data it is, we can judge it on how easy it would be to create insights from it. You might be surprised, but many organizations think that, oh, it's going to be too hard for me to do anything with my data. Look, it's all in these different worksheets on an Excel file. It's all in different files, but that might actually be simpler than larger organizations that we have worked with. So you'd be surprised. But I would say that a good next step would be to, as Ty mentioned, you can either talk to us or you can talk to data experts. You might have family or friends that you can talk to about this kind of stuff. But I think it's very important to just ask those kind of questions. And if you want to reach out to us, we're both available on LinkedIn or the emails that you see here, and perhaps we can point you in the right direction. But if you wanted to go it alone, depends on what you're trying to do. But you could even simply do, the best library in the world right now is Google. And depending on what part of ACFID you kind of like focus on in terms of these organizations, you could simply Google other examples of this kind of stuff, and you might see that, oh, there is another organization overseas that is doing the type of thing that I want to do. That could be your goalpost, for example. And then you either search for ways to how to get there, the type of software that they use. But like I said, it's either you can do some of the things yourself, download some of this software and start playing around with the data, or you can bring us in to have a quick conversation. We're very open to that.
Yeah, and I want to add there, Google is definitely right. And I'm hoping everyone's sort of, if you're not familiar with the technology landscape and space at the moment, there is a bubble around it. And one of the biggest things about this space, there are major technology providers, as you guys probably know, Microsoft, Salesforce, Google. Everyone's actually building their own little community of developers or users or end users. And they're creating a great platform where users are sharing so much information together. So you might not have huge experience with data at all, but if you guys are currently using Microsoft have a large community, and they're called MVPs, and they're constantly posting on forums. They're also readily available for you guys. So I really think that the technology community itself is growing quite large in Australia, which is very exciting. It's becoming more of the digital economy. But if you don't know where to start, like Mark said, reach out to someone. Starting with those communities, starting with LinkedIn, starting with either Clade or another consultancy out there, there's a lot of help.
Then the other thing as well, Ty mentioned that, but we're both part of something called DSAI. And if you type in dsai.org.au, that's a not-for-profit association that we've been members of, and we're actually directors there. And the idea for that has been to bring together the data community. It actually started out as separate data communities out of universities, all doing their own thing. And then the founding members actually joined together in 2019 to start running live events. And pre-COVID, it was really interesting. You know, we could actually meet and go out, but we've recently done some more online type talks around the quantitative finance space, so around analytics in that area. But we are very open to doing other kinds of things if people here are interested in say doing these kinds of data sessions where we show you how you can get started. We could do something like that as well. But it is a community, and we have a lot of people joining, asking a lot of questions about how to, you know, whether it's for their own career, how to get started in data, or for their organization, like where do I go to do this? Or I've seen this kind of cool infographic. There's a community across meetup.com where we do a lot of the meetups, LinkedIn, as well as our own kind of community on our website. There's about 6,500 people there. So there's a good little community of people that are interested in data that could be like you. They are just getting started or they're a bit more advanced, but there's definitely people out there to help. So just wanted to mention that as well.
No, awesome, Mark. There's a few last things that I want to mention before letting everyone off and getting a little break in there between sessions. Number one is please come visit our virtual exhibition booth. We are giving away a bottle of Dom Perignon. Please come through to register for that prize, jump into our virtual booth. I'm actually being lonely all day. Feel free to message us. Otherwise, I have to drink that bottle and I'm allergic to sulfite, so I could die. So please come register. Number two, I just want to plug, I have a session this afternoon with a charity called Oaktree, and they're running a session called F Up Nights, where I think people in the industry, it was 4 speakers altogether, including myself, sharing experiences where we have effed up and stuffed up and faced some challenges, but how we overcome that and provided some advice. I think it's a great fun session. I was very last minute thrown on myself, but put together some quick slides and sharing a story of a journey of myself. So you can sort of join that. Otherwise, if there's no more questions, I think we can end it a little bit early.
Mark. Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everyone.